Welcome back to another episode of Would I Recommend. Today we're going to talk about Mouse P.I for hire. Everything in this video will be completely spoiler free, so feel free to watch without any worry. Mouse P.I for Hire is a cartoony first-person shooter game that is quite clearly based on the old-school Steamboat Willie or Mickey Mouse cartoons. The game's art style is amazing, as you can see, and I can't really recall a video game having an art style like this, except maybe Cuphead, and even that game still isn't really the same as this. You play this game in full black and white, and you even have the choice in your game settings to add filters to make the game seem even older, with like an old cinema rolling camera effect and hazy style of music. I think that's the best way to explain it. One thing I couldn't stop thinking about with its art style is because all the characters and weapons are hand-drawn, I kind of wish they went into that more in the actual world art. The world can kind of feel like it just has a black and white filter thrown over a video game, and that didn't bother me, but I just think that if they had more art in the world that was hand-drawn, it could have elevated the art style even more. One thing I really came to appreciate, and it made me realise these guys really knew what they were doing here, was the death animation of the enemies. I love how you can turn enemies to dust with their eyes still sitting on the dust, or you can turn them to bones and they'll still stand there shaking. Those simple cartoon features that just really make this game stand out are all here, and I really loved it for that. So Mouse P.I for Hire is a simple game. It's a very PS2 to PS3 era style of game, and it's a well-paced linear game that knows what it wants to be. The gameplay is fun and even faster than I first thought. If you learn how to mash together things in this game, like the dash and the shotgun for an example, you can zip around these maps wiping enemies out with no problem. I've seen some people compare the gameplay to kind of like a Doom game, but for me the first thing I thought of when playing this game early on was BioShock. And the way that game plays as well is very similar to this. This took me back in time to a simple but fun game like that, and I'm not saying that this is on the same level as that, but just the way this game plays in general, it kind of made me feel like a kid again, and I think that's a great thing. Now the combat in this game is good, but it's not perfect. There's a good variety of weapons, and I'm happy to see they all play quite differently. They all feel nice and impactful in their own ways, and there's also weapon upgrades in the game that can change the way you use the weapons. One thing I want to point out quickly is the fact that the weapon upgrade system in the game is very simple, but I kind of like that. That goes back to what I was saying about this game feeling very old school. There's not 100 different weapon upgrades, but the ones that are there are very impactful. So once you start upgrading those weapons, you get a new way to use them by hitting a different button, and these will give them a different type of attack. Let's just say some of these are really useful, and I found myself using them a lot, and it's not even just about the weapons, but it's also about the environmental stuff you can use in the game. There's different types of barrels to blow up, which all come with their own cool death animations, and there's things like pianos and anvils that drop on enemies' heads, and other details that adds to the depth of the combat, and I came to appreciate that. If there was two complaints I could have had about the combat though, I think it would be the boss fights. I really enjoyed the way the bosses worked, and I really love the art style of each of the ones that I've played. But pretty much every boss fight I've played has come down to the same thing, which is either a jump or dash, throw dynamite, shoot and repeat while trying not to get hit. And the other complaint that goes into that is the challenge. I'm playing on the hardest difficulty, and I think I've died about 3 times in the whole 10 plus hours I've played. This one doesn't bother me as much overall, but in the boss fights it kind of did. I wish the bosses threw more at you. A bit more technicality in the boss fights would have went a long way for me, but it didn't stop me from enjoying this game at all. Now I want to talk about the world of this game, and I'm going to be honest, this world is amazing, especially if you're in the main parts of it. I love going into the city streets and seeing a bunch of black and white old school mice walking around, and it's filled with them. I like how you can go up to a lot of them and actually have a conversation, and those conversations are built up by the superb voice acting across the board. Especially with your main character, voiced by the one and only Troy Baker. I don't know how they managed to get a legend like Troy Baker in this game, but it goes to show just how unique this game is. I was glad to see they didn't just fill the world with characters and nothing to do. You can also play minigames like a baseball card game, which I enjoyed, even though it was pretty simple. But there's also secrets in this game to find, like baseball cards and comic book pieces. And that's great, but there's probably too many secrets, and I feel like they're around every corner, which takes away the surprise factor. I feel the game will do a better job to have collectibles as the only actual secrets and not announce a secret on screen if it's just something like cash that you've found. I was actually quite surprised to see just how big this world is. I really thought it might be small, but it isn't at all. Once the world map opened with the little car you can drive around, I was legitimately shocked. And to me, most parts of the game have great detail, especially the parts that lead up to a big moment like a boss fight. They've done a great job, and for a $30 price, you really can't beat that value. In this story, you play as a detective called Jack Pepper. Yes, like the pepper jack cheese. The story is pretty simple with you trying to solve crimes happening in the city of Mouseburg, and for me the story is probably the weakest part of the game. Early on I enjoyed it, but the side characters ended up being more interesting to me than the actual main story. I found myself later in the game to kind of just skip the dialogue because it wasn't really interesting and it kind of just bored me. I think it's one of those things where they weren't really trying to have the most amazing story, but just more fun gameplay and great art style. So even though I like a good story game and can appreciate a good story, I really didn't expect that coming into this game. If that's what you're looking to get out of this, you might want to rethink that because it's not going to do anything that will blow you away in that department. The story is very simple and generic, so don't come into this one expecting much else. So the conclusion to it all is if you're a fan of the art style and you like a simple gameplay style, you'll really like this game and I'd highly recommend picking it up, especially for that price. At $30 US, that's honestly a steal for the amount of content that's here. But on the opposite side of that, if you don't like the art style, you will not like this game. And if you won't play a game that doesn't have the best story, I'd recommend you give this one a miss. But anyways guys, that brings me to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, leave me a like and thank you guys for sticking with... But anyways guys, that brings me to the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed it, leave me a like and thank you guys for sticking around with me. Leave me a comment and let me know if you guys are going to pick this game up and what do you think of this game's art style. Let's have a conversation. It's nice to see games like this are still coming out in 2026. Thank you guys for watching this video and I'll talk to you in the next one.